Sorry, folks, I didn't see the press conference last night. I didn't see Russell Martin's pre-match presser in Graz last night, but what I'm hearing is correct. Kevin Thelwell and his boy are standing outside the main doors at Livingston on Sunday when the bus pulls up, and they're both giving the vickies to Russell Martin as he gets off the bus. That's disgusting. That is absolutely disgusting. See, when we first played Sturm Graz in Europe in the Champions League, mere 25 years ago, it seems like yesterday. Anything after the year 1999 seems like yesterday to an old man like myself. And I was at the game. We beat them 5-0. We beat Sturm Graz 5-0, the most we'd ever won a Champions League game by. It remains the case. The biggest ever victory for Rangers in the Champions League group stages. We won by 5-0, and the goals were scored by Michael Moles, Jorg Alberts, Ronald de Boer, Giovanni van Bronckhorst, and Billy Dodd's. Most memorable of all, I think, is Billy Dodd's finish against Graz. We were managed by a Dutchman, Dick Advocaat, and Bert van Lingen and all that. He brought in Jan Wouters as well. Quite a few Dutch guys on the coaching staff. We also had Arthur Newman and Big Bert Konteman on the park that night. So if Arthur Newman and Bert Konteman had scored instead of Billy Dodds and Jorg Alberts, we would have had 5 different Dutchmen scoring against Sturm Graz. When we've got a Dutch manager, a Dutch management team, I mean, that's no nepotism, but it's very, jobs for the boys. Do you remember when Gio was manager? And we're like, he's not made a single signing for the Netherlands. I mean, he's got all these contacts in the Netherlands. Why won't he do stuff that's really easy, that's right under his nose? I mean, is there anything more? Lawrence Shankland. His contract's up at Hearts. He's scoring all these goals. He's right under our nose. Why can we not just get these folk to be just right in front of us? Don't cast a wide net, Rangers. Just get the stuff that's right in front of you. So, if your son's good at doing the scouting, he's staying in the same house as you. Why would you know? We're just never happy. We're a really, really difficult support to please. 6 phases, 6 stages, but it's 7 stages of grief, isn't it? So I can maybe try and expand it to 7 stages. What happened in Sunday, but stage number 1 was definitely not so much the Livingston equaliser as our reaction to it. We'd been waiting for Livingston to equalise on Sunday since the start of the second half, when Rangers quite clearly had no intention of maintaining the momentum that we'd established at the end of the first half. A goal up, missed a penalty, another goal disallowed. Let's just go out and finish this job. But Rangers going 1-0 up is the worst thing that happens to Rangers in football matches over the last 10 years, it feels like. And sure enough, we just sat there and get further back, and eventually Livingston did equalise, in that kind of brooding pessimism. Slowly, I think kind of silence in the 3 stands of Almond Vale that were full of Rangers fans. Are we in the main stand as well? I wasn't at the game, I'm watching it on television, but are we in the main stand? We'll probably get some seats in there as well. But it slowly just became Martin, get to muck, Martin, get to duck. The song comes out, just slow, low, a beat of pessimism, a beat of rancour, a beat of disillusionment, a beat of just anger. You need to leave. We make all the substitutions, and then stage 2 is the goal that we score, the winning goal, the actual goal itself. 94 minutes. It's Tav to Nico Raskin, the flick on, the classic move, and there's Max Aarons, the kind of back post area, still a few yards from goal, sweeping on it, pouncing on the ball and sweeping it into that bottom corner. And I think because I was feeling exactly the same as the crowd at the game, you're not in any way excited, or half of the crowd at the game, you're not in any way excited, you're not even really hoping Rangers can score a winner. That's a natural thing. You're always basically wanting Rangers to win a game. But it was the overall mood, what had been put through in the second half. We've been put through it too often. This wasn't just a one-off bad performance and a run of great games. We needed to show a bit of loyalty to our team, a bit of belief in the team. It was just, we're seeing the same thing. We've seen it again and again, especially domestically this season. That enabled me, I think, to analyse it quite. You're just looking at it going, there was no fouls there, there's nobody offside. That's a goal. That is a goal. That was stage 2. It's been able to coolly and coldly say, and it's probably the winner. That's the winning goal. We've probably just scored there. Stage 3 was the ecstatic reaction of Max Aarons. He loses it. He's completely gone. His eyes have glazed over, and all power to him. That's the way we want our players to be. Completely psyched, completely up for it. It's a moment of redemption for him, he feels, anyway, after the sending off in Bruges. And it was. I don't want to take that away from the fella. I felt really happy for him, and I felt sorry for him as well because of what was going on with the Rangers support. It wasn't getting the reception it deserved in terms of volume, in terms of the numbers, in terms of a complete joy amongst the whole Rangers support. It wasn't that at all. And that was the Rangers players equally ecstatic as their teammate, the bench, the head coach, his assistants. They're really celebrating. And within that, you get Rangers fans who are screaming and cheering, and some of them pour onto the track. And one of them invades the pitch and runs up to Max Aarons, and Max Aarons isn't giving it. No, get back, mate, get back, you'll get us into trouble. He's like, yes, I will take that hug. Yes, I need that hug right now, which I think sums up how the Rangers squad are feeling at this moment in time. Certainly how their manager's probably feeling as well. But it was behind that. There was it was a silence. Only you get darkness visible in Milton's Paradise Lost. This was just like silence audible that was coming from behind the cheers. The Rangers fans, there was Rangers fans cheering this like you should cheer an injury time winning goal. It's almost screaming, almost high pitched screaming, like a yelp. The desire, the joy, the relief, all in there. But behind that was the guys who'd just gone, who'd invested so much in Martin dropping points in this game, so it was almost officially okay to say he's got to get sacked. They've been saying that all season, and there was just this reaction, this kind of difference. It was broken. The reaction of our support was broken to the point where it was like a jagged bottle or something like that. It was dangerous. It was horrible. But I'm sitting watching this in my sofa in Glasgow, and I'm feeling completely the same. It's a phenomenon. It's totally idiosyncratic, but it's also the only way to feel right now. And while I'm kind of thinking to myself, why am I not reacting here? Why am I not cheering this goal? Why is the kind of silence of a lot of Rangers supporters? Obviously, I can hear it in that ground. Why does that seem like the right thing to do right now? And stage 4 was Martin get to luck. Martin get to knock. I think it's the capital of Greenland or something. It's a strange place to want to send them, but the song comes out again. This is within a minute of Rangers scoring what is almost certainly going to be an injury time winner in a league match, but it's because it's our first league win of the season, and it's league game number 6. But we're reacting to it, or half the Rangers support in the stadium is reacting to it by turning on the manager, by turning against him. I don't know if I did turn on the manager, but he seemed quite happy. And then the 5th stage is the Billy Boys, a banned song, a prescribed song, a song that shouldn't be getting sung these days, and only comes out in the Rangers support, I would say, once a season on average now. It's about once a season, if that you'll hear it. And it means what I've gauged, one of the first times I heard it after we'd all kind of accepted really that it has to go, and we'd basically stamped it out. There's more chance you're going to get punched for singing the Billy Boys at Ibrox, especially in a European game, than you'd get punched for no singing it. Things have really changed, and for the best over the last 20 years or so. But I remember we played Queen's Park in the 3rd division, put our first season in the lower leagues, and we played Queen's Park while we were still an amateur club at Hampden in the 3rd division, and it was live on the television on a Saturday. I think it was Setanta Sport still at that time, was it? And we didn't score until, I think it was the last minute of the game. It was Fraser Aird. Fraser Aird scored the only goal of the game, so we're in the 3rd division. It's going to be a massive journey back, and now we're playing terrible in a way that might actually delay us getting out of this division. Are we ever going to be back in the top flight? Is Queen's Park our new derby rival in Glasgow? Is this our level? And then Fraser Aird scores, and there's the cheer for a last minute winner, but then the Billy Boys comes out almost, and it's half, because it's such a hateful song, because it's got such disgusting lyrics. It's like we're at this stage of self-hatred, but also want to throw toxicity that has obviously been levelled at us back in the faces of those who are doing that. It's like there's an acknowledgement that rival fans, let's just say, Celtic fans in particular, will probably be watching this game on television and really enjoying the fact we are suffering. Well, fuck you. This is the most horrible thing, and what is horrible, we can think to sing at you. And I think that's what was happening on Sunday. It was a kind of, we hate the fact that we've just told our manager he has to go after Rangers have scored the winner. We hate the fact that we can't react to a last-minute winner, an injury time winner for Rangers in the way that we should be allowed to react. Just joy unconfined. Maybe a bit of relief thrown in there, but we hate that we feel so toxic. And also, maybe it was the Rangers fans who had been celebrating that goal, and they're feeling toxic about their own supporters not celebrating with them, and it's like, fuck you to the bit. It was just this big display of toxicity, like try to get something out your system. And then it all melded into, what stage am I at? 6. This is stage 6. Ibroxonia. They start singing Ibrox. As Rangers play out the game, and we're heading for the victory. We're heading for our first league victory this season. Massive relief. Ibroxonia comes, which is the most beautiful Rangers song doing the rounds these days. A beautiful, beautiful song. It's all about the pain. It's an admission of the pain we've been through since 2012, and it admits we're worries as well. No, the thought of losing Rangers was just unbearable to us. It's a beautiful song, and we'd been through all that. It was like, right, we've got the bile out, we've hated the bile, and now we've won the game. You never know, we might have turned a corner. I don't know what was happening. I still don't know, but I went along with it all emotionally, without, there's not a lot going on in the skull anyway in terms of grey matter with me, but emotionally I was completely on. But you get the hive mind. I don't know if it's the hive heart or the hive heart attacking in my case, but it was quite a phenomenon. It was something I've never experienced before with Rangers. I mean, you want to throw in, you want to make it 7 stages, and I suppose the 7 stages of grief, they call it. You want to find a stage 7. You could perhaps add in the cheers and the boos, all coming from Rangers supporters on the full-time whistle, and Russell Martin disappearing straight up the tunnel to make it 7 stages of something, because it's no grief. It's maybe relief. It's certainly not ecstasy. I was going through it all myself. I mean, it had ecstasy and grief and everything in there, but not unconfined. No emotion was existing on its own. I was going through it all myself. So the hive mind's a powerful thing, but what was it? I don't know, 7 stages of grievous relief, perhaps. I don't. Maybe that's painful, but the whole thing was painful. It felt like a kind of hard, difficult excretion of something, getting something out the system. Perhaps even a painful rebirth. But the thing is, if somebody had asked me to paint a soundscape of what noise I imagined would be generated by Rangers finally tipping into the final part, the final chapter of the journey back from 2012, getting back to normality, the normality of Rangers winning titles and retaining titles and winning multiple domestic trophies in a season, then what happened on Sunday around our winner at Livingston, that was exactly what it would have sounded like. It was more frightening than nice, it certainly was, and it was more powerful than joyous or anything kind of gleeful and happy. It was a phenomenon. It was a once in a lifetime phenomenon. And I hope that's where it all either ends for Russell Martin, or where it changes for him, where it ends in both senses. In either sense, it ends in that's it, he can't come back, he's going to get sacked, or that's it, he's turned the corner, and we will grind it out now, and eventually Russell Martin will be the man for the job. How you doing, folks? This is your fat egg. Russell Martin thinks you don't know how to raise your kids. You're letting them stand there again, the fingers and all that kind of thing, and single fingers, double finger. I mean, if they're working quite well with their fingers, get them into iBooks, get them a data input job or something like that. That's what we're doing just now. Jobs for the boys, but he says you can't raise it, and he's right, because nobody knows how to raise their wins. But Russell Martin also has a played 7, won 2, drew 1, lost 4 record in Europe. That's the total for his career, player or manager, because he's only ever been involved in European competition since he's arrived at Ibrox. this summer. That's the only time in his career. And Rangers in Europe is my favourite of my 4 children. So, I mean, I've got the League Cup. That's my, it's a wee cute one. The League Cup. It's quite a laugh. It's the youngest of the kit. It's got the 3 handles. It's got that third handle coming out the front. And folk are like, "You're away." I can see folks staring. Like, don't be staring at my way in the street. Nobody's perfect. Like, I think it's cute. It's got 3 handles instead of just the 2, and it's really shiny. It doesn't have a lid on it, and that. I think, but that's the cutest. We win there. The Scottish Cup, I mean, it embarrasses me. It really does embarrass me in public quite a lot, of Scottish Cup, but also some great days out. We've had some great days out. Really fun times with the Scottish Cup. It's the oldest of my wins, but we get a good... There's the league title. That's... it's going through that stage just now where it's kind of hiding away in its room. It's distancing itself. That thing they do at that age where they don't want to know their parents. That we're embarrassing to them. But it'll come around. We'll start enjoying each other's company again. But I've got to be honest with you. You're not supposed to have favourites, but in Europe, Rangers in Europe. I think, and there's no pronouns here. We don't do pronouns for the Waynes, but I think my Rangers in Europe Wayne is so sophisticated, really, isn't it? Cosmopolitan, it speaks a lot of different languages and is known and respected for miles around, for far more than any of my other Waynes, who I love just as deep. If I've got to pick a favourite, especially when it's got its wee Europa League outfit on, it's got the orange bunting on top of the black outfit, and its wee smile on its face because everything's got. I can't help you. You can't help having a favourite. You know what it's like. But that is my favourite. It's why Thursday night is my favourite night of the week, except for that one Wednesday where the finals played. The Europa League. So if you, Mr. Martin, you'd better take care of my favourite Wayne properly from now on, now that they're in your care, because from what me and the other lassies who get together for a wee coffee after we've dropped them off in the morning, what we were kind of saying, it seems like Europe just isn't working for you so far. You're getting more homework. You're giving them more homework, go through the extra rounds and stuff like that, and that's fair enough. And you did get them into that Europa League group, that has to be said, but it's a bit soon for you to be lecturing anybody else on how to raise their kids when you can't look after my favourite kid and the only day you've had them so far, and that was last Thursday, the only time you've had my Wayne in that on their favourite subject in the Europa League last Thursday, and we get beat off Genk, you skinny, hairy bitchy. It's not just jealousy at all. You can find time for Kevin Thelwell's boy though, can't you? You can find time for him. Okay, it's a preview pod coming to you in association with Jersnet. Check out Jersnet. Sunday's flagship show, it's still up there on the Jersnet YouTube channel. It was John, Colin and Stuart going over everything that happened against Livingston and beyond. Well worth it. Although I dropped it because Colin packed it in, kind of halfway through that podcast, and no Armstrong, no party as far as I'm concerned. It was scarf onto the pitch, and I was just away. So check out that. And also, I'm also sponsored by MOT Awareness. Listen, guys, don't be, but it can affect men of all ages. That's why you're not getting your preview pod to this time on a Thursday. I'm really sorry about the lateness of the pods these days. I'm getting myself back in it. But one of the things that's been afflicting me has been something that happens to men, particularly at my age, at my stage of life. It's MOT awareness. We go through various stages. When I was a younger guy, I was doing that thing of, I just didn't care. You think you can get away with anything. It was like, the MOT's due tomorrow. I better arrange to have something. You have to run about different wee garages and that, trying to find somebody who would take you at the last minute for the service. And sometimes they didn't even get the service, just get the MOT because it was that late. Just didn't care. Your life's about, you get too many things to do. But yeah, you can deal with anything really, can you? But as I've got older, I've got really paranoid about it. And I've started doing that thing where it's like, oh my God, I need to get the MOT booked. Oh my God, I need to get the MOT booked. And I just had a incident, a wee accident the other day, let's just say, where we got a car last year, and it's the youngest car we've ever got. It's you need to kind of lean forward for going up hills and stuff like that. We've taken a pound in the kind of engine power and that to be able to afford, but it does the job. It's mostly just my wife that uses it for getting to a lot like that. So we've got this new car. It's just under the year, just last kind of October, end of October, beginning of November, and I'm spending months on anything. When's the MOT due in? But what happened to make things worse was Vauxhall sent us a safety recall notice thing. There was a mistake in it. There's a bit of some cooling nozzle jet engine oil thing in the motor, and then, don't worry about it, but it could explode if you don't get this thing sorted. So it's on them. They're obviously going to take care of it. Compass, they said just get your nearest Vauxhall dealer. So I go to Arnold Clark. There's an Arnold Clark down at South Street, and there's the one up in Gascue. I couldn't, the one at South Street, we don't have an appointment until like October. This was like July. I'm phoning them. And ended up, I got an appointment, right, just for Tuesday there. Just for Tuesday, just booked last day of the month. Up at the one at Gascube Mary Hill. That's absolutely brilliant. Goes in there, and I'm saying, but I'm worrying. I need to get it fixed before the MOT, because if I take it for the MOT and they see this nozzle cooling jet thing isn't working, I'll end up getting charged to get it in the service. And I usually just take the quick fit for the service and the MOT. So I had that booked up for the end of October. The MOT and the service. That was thought to come out this before that, get the safety recall thing done. And I thought, Arnold Clark are going to go in there and they're going to start trying to find something else that's wrong with the motor, because they're getting the money for Vauxhall for sorting out my car. They're going to want to make some money off me. They'll see me as a waste. If they kind of get some cash out, they'll find something else that's wrong that's not covered by the safety recall notice. So, but it didn't. It was quite the opposite. They're obviously, because they're a Vauxhall dealership, they're going out their way to make sure everything's absolutely fine. That you're going to tell Vauxhall, no, they did a great job. They were really good to me. They're like driving the car to the front door. Once I come, took the motor up there and I went away, and I come back, and you get the wee video sent to you showing you how they've, right, Mr. Anderson, this is your car here, and they've got it up in the thing, and I'm thinking, they're going to show me what's wrong. They're going to show me what's wrong. No, that's your work done, just to show you this is your brakes are working fine, and your engine, your exhaust. This is great. And they're like, oh, you want a wee freebie, the air thing, air freshener? I don't know, it's for me or for the car. This is good. And I got home, they were so nice about it, and they're actually they're going out their way to make sure you've had a really pleasurable customer experience, so you'll give them a good write-up with Vauxhall, which I will do, When I go up the road, I noticed the wee wallet thing they give you with your receipt in it, telling you everything they did to the car and the new oil you've got to use and stuff like that. At the top it said MOT is due on the 29th of March. I'm like, well, MOT is due at the end of the month. Wait a minute, this is the 30th. They've given me the MOT. They give me a 6-month free MOT. A free MOT for the next 6 months. So I don't have to. And does that count as a service? Is that what's happened? And so they phoned up, and they're kind of courtesy call yesterday to say, are you happy with everything? I said, I'm delighted. And by the way, can I just double check? Have you given me, because you look up the government gov.co.uk website for and it's MOT, it's like no information. I thought it's no information because it's buffering. It's just taken on board the fact that my MOT's been pushed back until March now. They're giving me a free 6-month MOT. I don't think that even exists. I don't think that's even a thing. I said to the woman, why you've given me a 6 months? She's like, let me look into that, have we? So this guy's saying we're giving him a 6-month MOT. No, Mr. Anderson, it's just your car was, only went on the road on the 26th of March 2023. I said, I know, but it was supposed to be ending. She's not, your tax was due at the end of October, end of November. Cars don't get an MOT if they're less than 3 years old. I've never had a car that's less than 3 years old. So I was asking about something that doesn't exist. It's just a coincidence that I'd taken it in on exactly 6 months before the MOT is due. And apart from anything else, if they hadn't told me that, I would have taken the car to Quick Fit for an MOT and a service. I had it booked in. It's like £285 or something like that. So I got to cancel that, and I got to. But it's quite embarrassing. That's MOT. I would just be aware of the fact that a motor that's less than 3 years old, everybody else knows that. Sponsors, isn't it? It's just I'm sponsoring the podcast. Advertising on the podcast now to try and make a bit of money out of it, so I can get better equipment, and the pods will be better, and so I can take a lot of cocaine and go on holiday and stuff like that off the back of your hard-earned time listening to my garbage. But the sponsors, it's adverts. Prime. I was watching Prime Video, Amazon Prime the other day, and it was Fargo. I hadn't seen Fargo. The series of Fargo. I saw the film ages ago, and I watched the first couple of series, the TV series, the offshoot of it. And I seen a few things get sent to me on my YouTube algorithm, wee excerpts for the Fargo TV series that I hadn't seen. So I thought I'll watch it. I think it was the last one, the fifth, series 5. I'm watching. It's all right. It's not brilliant, no, but my God, no, Prime. You're paying a subscription for Amazon Prime, but now it's adverts as well, because no costs, because basically Brexit means Brexit and whatever. Everything's just really expensive now because the folk that are in charge are just charging us everything because there's Nazis in charge of the entire planet. But it's like adverts. It's like American style adverts where you'll get like an advert after the prologue and an advert before the the kind of epilogue to the season, adverts almost between every scene. But in the old days, at least you could flick the channels. You could just flick, oh, there's adverts, and I'll flick to another channel and watch something. It's Amazon Prime, you've got to let it run. You've just got to let it run because you're stuck on that channel. I mean, you could go on your phone, I suppose, and watch something, but it's really annoying, and I'm finding myself just getting really sick of it. But I'm thinking about, we're playing an Austrian team tonight. I don't know if you can see that thing behind me. That's a picture for the Bundesliga from a few decades ago, the Austrian Bundesliga, and you can see on the kits, I think that's thing with Innsbruck and their away kit because they're playing Rapid Vienna, obviously, but they've got adverts in their sleeves, adverts on their shorts, adverts in the bums on their shorts. They've got adverts up the insides of their shorts, adverts up the inside of their kit or coat. It's company names, sponsorships, logos all over these classic strips in Rapid Vienna. Get various classic kits over the years, and I like that. I have to be honest, I've always found that quite attractive. I'm not completely down on advertising. I'm not completely down on commercialism in football. I remember if you're my kind of age, you might remember when Liverpool brought out the Hitachi. Was Hitachi the first shirt sponsor in British football? Late 70s. And Liverpool came out, Hitachi across their kit. All the kids and that were going crazy. How much we loved it. We wanted our mums to get that. If you had an actual Liverpool strip that didn't have Hitachi on it, you were a mug. This wasn't worth showing your face in public. Everybody, I want Hitachi. It was the coolest thing. Arsenal with the JVC, Manchester United, Sharp. These things were classic. They became part of the kit. I mean, that's what advertisers dream of. Obviously, that kind of stuff happening, but they've still got to make sure their companies are profitable. But I was just thinking, you're not completely down in advertising. And this is we're going to Austria. This is where I first saw it as a kid, really taken off. Probably the nightmare scenario for anybody who's totally anti-commercialism, and trades, whatever you want to call it. But I just thought it always looked really cool. I mean, they took it even further in Austria, and it was Austria and Hungary, Austria-Hungary. Middle Europe, Mittel Europa, and I think Finnish teams as well did it a lot with plastered their classic kits. We advertising everywhere, all over the kit, and it was always, because Uefa get involved, they're proper mobsters. They're only going to allow the advertisers that have paid them money, so the advertising on the kit completely changes. I remember we had to swap when we went over to France. We could do McEwen's Lager because they've got a ban on advertising their shirts, and we always end up getting Centre Parks, who are an offshoot of McEwen's Lager. Who knew that? But like even in Austria, the clubs would change their names. Austria Vienna became Austria Memphis. You had Swarovski, Tyrol, jewellers basically. Casino Austria Salzburg became Red Bull Salzburg. That was a quite controversial one over there, but it was the most kind of Middle European thing of my adult life to see all these. I just thought it was cool as anything all over the players' kits. So somehow commercialism is like PSV Eindhoven, Wrigley Field in America. I think it's the football. Soccer is the working man's game. That is the game of the working man, and we talk about money, and we should talk about money, and oh my God, that's worth £1 million. That's the first ever £1 million transfers, and that's what we talk about is money, 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 all the time. 75 million it cost Kavanagh and Marathi to buy Rangers, and then they put 20 million into the transfer. We should talk about it because it's constantly folk. You shouldn't be embarrassed by your wealth. This contempt for wealth is just another trick of the rich to keep the poor without it. Oh, is that you quoting this Karl Marx again? Like a big lefty. Is that Engels you're quoting there? Or what is that? Is that Marcuse or somebody? Is this your Frankfurt School kind of neo-Marxist or something like that? No, that's not. That's not who I'm quoting there. You shouldn't be embarrassed by your wealth. This contempt for wealth is just another trick of the rich to keep the poor without it. Who said that? I'll tell you at the end of the podcast. You tell me, you just have a wee think about that. Who is that quote from? And I better take a note of that because obviously my pods go on quite a bit. We've got a lot in my mind today, so I'll just write down to remember my notes here to tell you. Tell them it's Al Pacino playing Michael Corleone in Godfather 2 when Sonny's lassie comes in and asks for his blessing in marriage in the bit that's supposed to mirror the wedding in Godfather 1 and Don Corleone, which is what Michael now is, asking for just a wee note of that. Yeah. And he says to the guy, the fiancé, how do you propose to, what is it you do for a living? And he says, I'm in is it fine arts? I'm studying fine arts or something like that. He says, well, how do you propose to support my niece on fine arts? And he says, oh, I'm just so embarrassed. I'm just so embarrassed to say it, but my family are really quite wealthy, so I've got plenty of money. And he says to him, so you shouldn't be embarrassed by your wealth. This contempt for wealth is just another trick of the rich to keep the poor. I've just written that down there to make sure. I just wrote that down there, folks. I will tell you at the end of the pot. My name's Alec Anderson. Take a look into some big grey eyes and ask yourself, you wanna make 'em cry. Looking at them, it's just as well, but you gonna live to see. I'm gonna ask you why. Either way, you got a bone to pick. Can't you leave that to somebody else? I don't need you to suck my dick or to help me feel good about myself. Big gay heart, please don't break my big gay heart. Big gay heart, please don't break my big gay heart. Why can't you look after yourself and not down on me? Do you have to try to piss me off 'cause I'm easy to please? Why can't you look after yourself and not down on me? Yeah, well, I understand now you're not with the big gay scene. My name's Alec Anderson, folks, and I'm here to talk to you about not Vienna. Graz. Rangers tonight are playing Sturm Graz in their second match of the 2025-2026 Europa League group stage. We are in Graz. We're not in Vienna. I just can't help but go to Austria. It just seems like a waste if you don't go to Vienna. I made myself promises in Vienna. I made my promises about Vienna when I was in Vienna. Decades ago, I visited Vienna, had a holiday in Vienna, and at the start of that, the first thing I did, I made myself promises before I went to Vienna all those decades ago. I'm going to share some visuals with you here. This is the one and only Simon Inglis, The Football Grounds of Europe, which is a seminal piece of work, which when I was like 19, 20 years old and I'm reading this in my wee shack in Ardrossan, I'm thinking, oh, one day I'll go to the home of continental football, the first place. I mean, Glasgow here, where it's 1872, just down the road. St Andrew's Day, 1872, the first ever international football match took place. Scotland against England, 0-0, down at Hamilton Crescent. Well, over in Vienna, 30 years later, 12th of October, 1902. Austria scalped Hungary. I mean, Austria just played Hungary all the time. Austria-Hungary. No, the whole we know about Austria-Hungary. But they think they beat them 5-0, but that was the first international football match to take place in continental Europe. It was 30 years later, but it took place in Vienna. You know, the Viennese, the Austrians, they played the Scotch professor style. They took on the Scottish style. And the Germans, but it's really Teutonic Scotland. You know, the Germans, they took on the English style. And you can see the way that has worked out for all concerned. In the ensuing decades, I was on the most polyglot train journey I was ever on, was going from Marienplatz in Munich out to the Allianz Arena for the opening game of the 2006 World Cup Finals. There's Mexicans, there's Iranians, there's just everybody was over there. Scottish folk, obviously, few Germans, few Costa Ricans. It was incredible being in the Town Square, at that time, the Town Square, Marienplatz in Munich, Town Square. All sorts going on. It was everything you thought the opening game of a World Cup should be. And then the train journey, or the U-Bahn journey out to the stadium, it's just incredible, to the point where an Austrian woman was chatting to an American woman. And so the Austrian, of course, is talking in English. And she was explaining, obviously trying to do it in hushed tones, but I'm just sitting right next to them, and I could hear her saying, oh, yeah, we always want Germany to lose. She's obviously sitting in this train raging, because there's all these Germany fans in Germany going to see Germany playing, but she's sitting raging, the way some certain Scottish people would be if they were on a underground, the London Tube, going out to Wembley, and we're surrounded by England supporters. Just say, we've won a World Cup, you know what I mean? We've played two finals of the Euros. You know, you hardly even qualify for the Euros or the World Cup. So she's like, yeah, we watch them on television. We always want to get beat because of the arrogance of the German commentators, because they all speak German, because they can Österreicher and they can understand the German, can't they? And I thought, yeah, that's not in Hee-Hawn in 1982, hen. That's, you're maybe getting that, I don't know why I think that was the time to, this is a World Cup vibe. I should really have talked about them having the wee, it's cruelly nicknamed the Anschluss game as well. Austria and Germany playing out a 1-0 victory for Germany, so the two of them could qualify at the expense of a brilliant Algeria sides, wearing one of the greatest kits ever worn in world football, that Algeria side in 1982. But it was an amazing thing, and it's made me think, yeah, this is what happened. This is what happened. It's like the Scots, the Austrians went in the same journey, playing our style of football. Maybe a scalp in England, what was it, 5-1, 1928 at Wembley. We've got, before, we're not going to take part in World Cups. We're not interested in World Cups. We're telling FIFA. Now, they didn't even want us to qualify. Just come to work. Nah, we're the best. The Home International Championship is the de facto championship of the world. We don't need that kind of stuff. And we're scalping England 5-1 at the same time as the Austrians are building up their Wunderteam. You get from Vienna. Well, he was born in the Czech Republic, but he spent his time in Vienna, didn't he? Matthias Sindelar, Austria Vienna in the 1919s, in the 1920s, and into the 30s. You get Sindelar, and eventually they got Franz Bimbo Binder, who was the manager of Rapid Vienna when Jim Baxter had his leg broken by an angry Rapid Vienna player who'd been, Jim Baxter had been putting on a show for the crowd at the Prater Stadium, the old Prater playing fields in the middle of Vienna. There's Central Park, or Central Park is the Prater Park of New York, whatever you want to call it. And then eventually, so many folk playing football there that they build a stadium there that becomes the Ernst Happel Stadium. Ernst Happel was the manager of Feyenoord when they won the European Cup in 1970. He's the manager of HSV Hamburg when they won the European Cup in 1983. The first guy to win it with two different clubs as a manager. But it's a great Austrian player. And he's involved in the 50s. When did he play against Scotland? Scotland's first, let's not go there this soon, Alec, but it's in the 1930s, the Austrian Wunderteam, the great Wunderteam, they build up this run of, they play all these games from, I think, 1931 to 1934. They score over 100 goals. They don't win them all, but they lose 4-3 to England. I think it's at White Hart Lane, that game's played. They lose 4-3 to England, but they give England a right scare. Remember 1933? 20 years before, Hungary become the first non-British Isles team to beat England in England, and that's they beat England at Wembley. The Ireland team that beat them at Goodison. You know what I'm saying? The first team that's properly continental, the first team that's not from these parts to beat England, but that Austrian Wunderteam nearly did it, and they were on this amazing run, scoring all these goals, and just Sindelar, der Papieren, die Papieren, my German's not the best, the paper man, because he was so painfully thin, he's just doing the business. They get to the semi-final against Italy at the San Siro. I mean, they're playing against Giuseppe Meazza himself at the Giuseppe Meazza. He's in that Italy team that wins, under Mussolini, wins the 1934 World Cup, and they're about to, they're getting Anschlussed with the Germans. They're going to have to merge with the German team who they play in the third, fourth place playoff. I mean, the park was muddy at the San Siro. You know that Mussolini was in there doing stuff with it. They only lose the game 1-0 Austria, but that was it. That was the end of the Wunderteam Wunder periods. They end up losing the third, fourth place playoff because it was such a downer to the Germans as well. They get back to World Cup semi-final in 1954, and they get destroyed 6-1 by the Germans in the semi-final, which is a beautiful moment in world football for all sorts of reasons I've discussed before. But they gub the Uruguayans in the third, fourth place playoff. But that's it for Austrian football, and it's that same World Cup. It's when Scotland, it's the first one Scotland ever qualified for, or ever went to. Technically, we qualified for 1950. And we go along to that, and the Austrians, we turn up, we don't have any substitutes, we've not even got a pennant to swap. We've got these terrible strips on. I've seen the photographs, it looks pathetic, but they only beat us 1-0, that Austrian team, their first ever match in the World Cup finals, Scotland, in the hard tournament in Zurich. Zurich, they beat us, no longer there. So there's a kind of, there's a joint story there, there's a, kind of parallel lines with Scotland and Austrian football. And hopefully the two of us can get back to greatness, but we're running about the same level now, and we're UEFA coefficient, and I just find Vienna so kind of, Vienna is like, it's Harry Lime, it's the Riesenrad, it's the black and white, it's Freud walking round the Ringstrasse, Gustav Klimt and Wittgenstein's building his sister a house, and then it's Freud's having to get his throat scraped, and he's having to scrape his own throat of cancer cells on a daily basis. He's having to rip the skin off his own throat every day in the morning because the cigars he smokes, it's taking them. That's how he dealt with that kind of cancer in the days. But then he gets up and he does his work and he goes for a walk around the rings. I've been a walk around the Ringstrasse. It's an amazing thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful city, Vienna, and Matthias Sunderland. What's Graz? Austria, Vienna, Rapid Vienna. They've lost 3 Cup Winners' Cup finals between them. Even Salzburg reached the Casino Salzburg, as they were then, reached the 1994 Uefa Cup final against Inter, and they played the first leg of that final at the Prater in Vienna. Did Salzburg? It's all Vienna. It's all that kind of stuff. And what has Graz got? It's got no European finals. And it's got Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's got 2 teams in the same stadium, and they're sponsored at various times. The 2 of them, I think, have been sponsored by this plant company. Is it Liebherr or something? It sounds like a kind of condom or some sort of lubricant or something like that. Really weird sounding thing. And it's I mean, Uncle Monty says the carrot has mystery, but for me, it's Vienna has mystery, and Rigsby, his cat, was even called. It means nothing to me. Graz means nothing to me. Oh, it's minging. Arnold Schwarzenegger Stadium. That's what it was when we played Sturm Graz in the Champions League in 2000, 2001. And they beat us in the return game. We beat them 5-0 at Ibrox, then they beat us in the return game, of course, 2-0. 1-0 down, and then we lose another goal right in the last minute. And then the shared stadium, which has only been built in the kind of mid-90s, was known as sponsored by Arnold Schwarzenegger himself, who's born right just outside Graz, I think. And they don't want Arnold Schwarzenegger sponsoring the stadium because Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't he stop the death penalty on I was talking about how we played it's Graz. They've been playing at Klagenfurt. They played the Champions League games, even the Champions League qualifier, which they lost this season, the playoff game to Bodo Glimt. They'll be playing that at Klagenfurt, because bigger stadium in Klagenfurt, and I get that mixed up. I was talking about this in Jersey. I kept calling it Ingolstadt, and Ingolstadt, of course, isn't even in Austria. Ingolstadt is, of course, in south central LA, not Ingolstadt. But Arnold Schwarzenegger was getting rid of he was making sure the leader of the Crips got executed. Pyru, or the leader of the Crips, as opposed to the Bloods, wasn't it? We're the Crips because they're the Blues. He was getting executed. He'd been on death row for like 20 years, but Arnold stepped in there and just being an action hero. Even he's up against Stallone. Him and Stallone are head to head with who could be more muscular, who could kill more bad guys, who could be more preposterous in the films that they were making back in the day. But at least Sylvester Stallone did Copland. I know you ran out to see it, same as me, because you thought Copeland. There was a film about the Copeland. You went, right, see, remember LA Confidential was on the pictures, and I'm walking about saying to folk, I'm going to see that new French film, La Confidential. Look, it's LA Confidential. Oh, God, you just don't know how to speak European like what I do you? But the same with Copland was on, it's Keitel, it's De Niro, and you've got Sly walking about there. But he's gone fat. He's just playing a Dumbo. He's really letting his Hud Keitel and De Niro in his ear through the whole film, telling him how to method act, telling him how to go along. We'll do the Lee Strasberg thing, Godfather 2 again. Let's just method act there. So Stallone's got that in his CV. What's the moment of actual authenticity of a real artistic endeavour for Arnold Schwarzenegger? It isn't nice doing the adverts now for heavy plant machinery for your garden. Stuff like that. He's I didn't give the guy a stay of execution. I make sure he got the lethal injection. So fuck Graz compared to Vienna. And I think Dr. Freud would probably say, I think you've got a problem. I think you've got a bit of a problem. You're projecting too much onto Graz, too much negativity onto just a perfectly innocent Austrian city, if there's any such thing. But I think it's because of the promises I made to myself. It's because of my own broken promises. I did keep my promises when I was a young man, and I said, when I was reading Simon Inglis, it's hard to hold this up and hold this microphone at the same time, Simon Inglis' Football Grounds of Europe, and it was pictures of the Prater Stadium putting the roof on it, which happened quite late on. I think it was the 80s or something. They put the roof in the Prater. Held up to 100,000. That's where the Austrians beat the beat the Germans just after the Anschluss to show that Nazism was wrong, even though half of Austria was Nazi as well, just like Britain is just now. There's the Gerard Hanepe Stadium, as it used to be back in the day, Rapid Vienna's stadium, and it's just these tiny pictures. This is I didn't have the internet in 1989, 1990 when this came out. This is what I was confined. Just would read this every night, and I would look at these pictures of these stadiums in Vienna. The whole section on Austria in Simon Ingles's Football Grounds of Europe just has Vienna. Doesn't have any other city. Doesn't have Innsbruck. Doesn't have Graz. That's for sure. Doesn't have Salzburg. It's just got Vienna, and it's that picture there. Don't you see that there? That black and white, tiny black and white picture of the Franz Horst Stadium, FK Austria. The coffee shop football, the coffee house footballers of Vienna. There's a kind of intellect. There's a kind of social awareness. It's a bit lefty, if you like, but I just loved the fact that it was a wee stadium that's snow in that picture. It's covered in snow. That was the Vienna, the mysterious Vienna, and then you had Hobart there up the top. This 85,000. It was the biggest crowd in continental Europe watching Italy against Austria there, and it was 1920s or whatever. There's a landslip. There's a landslip because it's like the Cathkin Park of Austria, and I thought that's still on the go. That place, it's actually still on the go. That's it. And I grew up with the photographs, and I promised myself I'm going to get to Hobart. I'm going to get to that massive. It's next to the Baron Rothschild estate. It's First Vienna's ground. First Vienna that were formed by gardeners on the British gardeners on the Rothschild estate. It's not like Erste Wien. It's First Vienna. It's in English because it's formed by English guys, basically Scottish guys and English speakers. And I went there. I did go. When we went to Vienna, one morning I got up super early and I headed out. And I just get to, and you're looking up the underground, the subway, and you can see it up there, the massive Glasgow style drenched floodlight up on top of this hill. And it had advertising on it as well, big board advertising. It just looked phenomenal. And up I went, and it's just lovely houses near the Rothschild estate. Obviously, all these lovely kind of middle class houses with big gardens and that. And it's basically through somebody's back. I climbed through somebody's back garden, where they maybe picked their bins out. And we kind of lane at the back of the garden. I just walked through that, and then I went through this gate, and there it was. There it was in front of me, Hobart. And there's one groundsman dotting about. And I had the whole place to myself. He just looked at me, and that's another hipster asshole has come along to see Hobart because he's seen Simon Ingles's Football Grounds of Europe. But this was, we're talking at the very start of the millennium here. Just having that whole place to myself, sat in there, the benches up in the big massive slope that had been the grass banking that had slipped. That used to be Austria's national stadium. So I'm sitting there was crowds of like 80 odd thousand used to be in here watching the paper man, watching Matthias Sindelar. And I promised myself I would get there, and I got there. And I went into other grounds in Vienna. I never saw any football when I was over in Vienna. And that was at the beginning of the holiday. At the end of the holiday, the day we were leaving, the day we were getting the flight was quite late in the day. It was lunchtime or something, so first thing in the morning, crack of dawn. It was a Saturday. Austria, Vienna are at home that day. They're playing. I'm like, we're leaving as you're kicking off. And I promised myself in future I'll let you go to plan this kind of stuff better. And I went out there though. I went out first thing in the morning to the Favoriten, the district Favoriten, and I found the Franz Horst Stadion, and the groundsman was getting the place ready. There was a few, and I just said to him, I had my wee camera with me, and I was like, 5 minuten? And he's like, 3 minuten, or 5 minuten, on you go, quick. I said, thanks mate. And I had one of my wee Rangers badges that I gave him. They couldn't have cared less, I was stopping him getting on with his job, getting the ground prepared for that day's game. So I rushed onto the terrace, and the home terrace, and that's one of the photographs I took. I'm going to hold it up to the camera there, folks, if you can see it. Of the Franz Horst Stadium. I took that wee photograph from, and you can see the mist in the background if you look really carefully, just going around the flats there. It was a misty morning in Vienna, and it looks nothing like that now, the Franz Horst. We'll still get the basic character of it, but it's all been built up on each side, and they've got that beautiful violet kit. It's now the violet seats. I saw them once, the highlights. They played Athletic Club in the UEFA Cup, and it was misty at night time. You get Austria, Vienna at home to Athletic Club Bilbao. Guys that have clubs with massive European reputations, but neither of them have done anything as vulgar as actually winning a European trophy. They've got to finals and lost finals. they're playing each other in Vienna in the mist on a Thursday night. I thought, that's it, and I made myself a promise I'm going to go back. If Rangers ever played Austria Vienna in Europe, I'm going to go. I wanted to go. These days we could end up just playing them at Ibrox or only playing them away from home. How I would get a ticket when I've not been to a European away game in about, since Manchester, really. I don't know, but I would need to find a way. That's one promise I made myself. The other promise I made myself was during lockdown, during COVID lockdown. I promised myself I would go and see Royal Albert at Thelwell Park. That would be the first game I would go to as I completed. I would be in the middle of completing the whole former SJFA, the Juniors West region. I'd gone to every ground in the West region, only had a few left to do. And then COVID came in. Lockdown came in, and so all through lockdown, and I'm not seeing any live football, I've seen plenty of it on the television, but I'm not going to games. I promised myself I would go and see first Vienna FC. I promised I'd go and see Royal Albert at Thelwell Park, because that's Stonehouse Violet's old ground. Stonehouse Violet don't exist, but I saw them playing at Pollock once, and this was a way of seeing, I could go and kind of see Stonehouse Violet and Royal Albert in a winner, and that's what I did. I saw Royal Albert getting gubbed at home by Ashfield, the first juniors game I went to after lockdown. But the other promise I made myself during lockdown was that I would just do a special football trip to Vienna, and I would go and see first Vienna. I would obviously love to see Austria Vienna, because they're a European finalist. I haven't seen, that's my main list. But sometimes there's things, something like lockdown where you're not seeing any football at all. You don't even want to be that fussy about what football you go to see. The guys who formed it, the guys who made it happen. And first Vienna, even though they never reached the European final, they reached plenty, and they won the Mitropa Cup. The forerunners of the European finals, the Mitropa Cup, the Latin Cup. You even got the Dr. Giro Cup, the Middle European Cup, the Dr. Giro Cup, the International Cup. You had small international tournaments. Just the British Home Internationals wasn't the only kind of micro international tournament going on in the world. But like the season before, Real Madrid played Stade de Reims in the European Cup for the first ever European Cup final. The season before, they'd met also at the Parc des Princes in the Latin Cup final. You know, I see pictures of both games. You have trouble distinguishing what one's the European Cup final, what one's the Latin Cup final. And in the same sense that just now UEFA live off the glory and the romance that Real Madrid brought to the European Cup. That's what they're selling in the Champions League. It's a marketing of the real romance of the Champions League. But European competition itself, as we currently know it, pan-European club competition, the stuff that I love, it doesn't exist without the Mitropa Cup, without the Latin Cup, without these little regional tournaments. And the romance that Real Madrid brought only stems from the romance that was already there from Italian teams, Czech teams, and Austrian teams and Hungarian teams getting involved in the Mitropa Cup. And first Vienna at Hofart, where the the paper man Matthias Sindelar, a great Jewish player and you'd Hakoah Vienna, a great Jewish club, basically just decimated by the Holocaust. Matthias Sindelar kind of killed himself supposedly, or him and his girlfriend getting drunk and they left the gas on. There was a gas leak while they were in their bed, and that there was a whole big kind of theory that the Nazis had actually killed him because he was a national hero and Jewish, so he had to go. But that's, I think that's been kind of blown out of the water. It's probably just he's got himself bevied and they've left the gas on or something. Other folk think it was a suicide. Who knows? He'd kind of fallen on hard times. He was going to have to give up playing football as he's getting to his late 30s. Nobody's really sure, but that's just part of the mystery. It's part of the trauma of Vienna. But I promised myself I'm going to go and see first Vienna when lockdown ends, and I've not managed to do that yet. I spent so much time watching Rangers. I even got to see Scotland at Hampden that I've not had a chance yet to go and see first Vienna at Hofart, even though they're not a European finalist in the current sense. But we owe them so much for what they put into, for the structure, the underpinning of European club football and everything that it means to us just now. None of that happened in Graz, as far as I'm concerned. In Graz in 1974, when they started the Austrian Bundesliga, they were going to merge. They proposed merging Grazer AK and Sturm Graz, and they fought it. Fair enough, but that's quite unusual in Austrian football because it's just so many mergers, so many sponsorships, so many name changes, and even location changes. It's a crazy thing. But we're going to Graz tonight, and I think it's an amazing thing that we're in Austria, because James Tavernier will go clear in second place of Europa League proper, the Europa League, like group stage or beyond, appearances for one club. The only guy ahead of him now is Andreas Ulmer, who's just recently retired maybe a couple of seasons ago. He was a former captain, left back of RB Salzburg. He played 61 games for RB Salzburg in the Europa League group stages or beyond. The TAV will be game 59 tonight. Takes him ahead of the current Red Star Belgrade goalkeeper, but he put together 58 appearances for Braga in the Europa League group stages. So Tav will go clear tonight on 59, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. He does that in Austria when it's an Austrian that he's chasing for the overall title. It's quite an incredible record when you think about it. And when you think about how we absolutely hated Tav at the beginning of the season, it is the Europa League record uniquely. It's not the Europa League as part of the Fairs Cup and the UEFA Cup. The UEFA Cup record is held by Giuseppe Bergami, who had 100 appearances. Giuseppe Bergami, the great Italy and Inter defender, who I saw playing at Ibrox in the UEFA Cup in the first European game I ever went to. The romance of that tournament. A guy who played at the Giuseppe Meazza, where Austria, the Austrian Wunderteam, basically died a death, where it all ended for Austrian football in the 1934 World Cup semi-final. But it's quite a thing for Tav tonight, so congratulations to him if he's selected. I hope he is. Just a quick debrief. We're going for it's a sticky pitch at Livingston on Sunday to a patchy pitch in Graz tonight. Plastic grass to Graz grass, which apparently is the pitch is in a bit of a state, and we don't. I didn't mention that. On Sunday's post-match reaction pod to the Livingston game, that the manager had mentioned that the sticky pitch, both in his post-match interview with Luke Shanley on Sky and in his presser in the bowels of the Almonville Stadium, because it's just such a pylon had formed by that point. There was just no point in me mentioning it. But it's at the heart of how I kind of feel about Russell Martin at this moment in time. Is he saying it for the team? Is he saying that kind of stuff to give the team as many excuses as possible, or is it for himself? Is it to protect himself? And I think the two things hopefully are becoming intertwined, that the manager just feels he is part of the team. They're all in it together. I also lost track of why I was talking about the huge new stadium, a comparatively new stadium that St Helens Rugby Club have got. The Liverpool women have been playing Manchester United women in the WSL on Sky in the same channel just before Sky Sports 3, before the Rangers game come on it, and I'd watched that and looked at the big massive end terraces at that stadium and thinking it's super. And I knew there was a reason I was mentioning it in relationship to Livingston, and it was because, and there was so much to cover on Sunday, I lost track of what I was talking about. Can you imagine that? And it's because of the terracing. It's because they built this brand new terracing, these massive terraced ends. Also, there's the Kop thing when you're watching Liverpool, even if it's Liverpool, not the Liverpool men's first team that always play at Anfield, but the women's team are only occasionally allowed to play at Anfield. But you still have that instant relationship with the Kop, the spying Kop. And here it was two Kops, basically proper Kops, actual terracing at each end of the stadium. It's St Helens Rugby League Stadium, and I thought that's what it is. Livingston, when they were building a new stadium, they become Meadowbank Thistle had become Livingston. But part of it all was the fact that to be allowed into the SPL in those days, you needed to have, I think at first it was 10,000 all-seater stadium. Then they maybe dropped it to 8,000 or something. And that's part of the Livingston struggles. I was trying to compare our so-called struggles to those of other clubs and why we shouldn't be that, basically negative about things at Ibrox just now, when basically I think we're just waiting to push up, just waiting to go for the final hurdle, and we'll be clocking up on the trophies again. But Hamilton Accies don't even play at New Douglas Park anymore after having to go to New Douglas Park and having this stadium that only had basically two stands. It's only got two stands. After Old Douglas Park at least had a kind of cohesion to it and an atmosphere, and it's basically like 2 yards away from the site of the old Douglas Park, the new one. This joke called the SPL, that the minute it voted to get rid of Rangers, it collapsed in itself. And you also had Falk. I literally twice, 2 seasons in a trot, my mate and I went to the last ever game at Brockville. We went to the last ever game at Brockville 2 seasons in a trot, because they were going to knock it down, and then they stopped, and then what they've got just now is building up a bit of an atmosphere. Rangers' next destination after Graz, or next domestic opponent, we're going to Falkirk's new stadium, but it's the one side of it, isn't it? There, it's because of the explosion, the fault for Grangemouth power plant, and that might not be a problem anymore. But it's awful. We've got these teams with three-sided stadiums, and they have to move stadium, they have to move cities. In the case of have to move towns in the case of Livingston, and then it doesn't matter. But having all these seats and everything anyway, and everybody still hates your stadium, and other clubs have been through so much more than us. And there's clubs now down south are building brand new spanking terraces, and like Falkirk and Livi, and that must be like, what if we were told we weren't allowed to by these idiots who ran the SPL. Russell Martin has actually won 2 straight domestic matches versus top flight opponents of the sticky kind. We need to give him that kind of credit right now. And I was also doing a wee thing on Sunday where I was saying about stadiums, how we've got collective memory, and it's signposted by the mise en scène by the stadiums that these dramatic moments happen in, and there's only 2 that really exist, and that's where you clinch a league title. Emmy Rangers, it's Easter Road, Tannadice. Easter Road and Tannadice, that we always win the league title. We never win the league at Ibrox, just never, in 1978. 2003 and stuff. I mean, we did have won the league at Ibrox, so we have clinched the league title at Ibrox, but it's just Tannadice, Easter Road, Pittodrie, obviously 1987. We clinched the league there. And the Rangers fans are pouring onto the pitch. Rugby Park, Walter's last game as Rangers manager, winning 5-1 there in the last day of 2010-2011 season, having like 3.5 stands that day. That was quite remarkable, very memorable. Still grass then, Rugby Park. But it's the other thing is sackings. I forgot to list. You can have sacking. It's the last Geo up at McDermott Park getting beat, and then going to Paisley against St Mirren, only drawing. That was it. That was it for Geo. It was Ibrox in the case of Philip Clement getting the boot. It was Ibrox in the case of Michael Beale getting beat 3-1 off Aberdeen. It was, but the other thing that can make a stadium memorable in part of your journey as a football fan is when it's the place that something turns round, when something switches. Where a place that we go back to and say that was the day. No, the City Ground, Nottingham, for Alex Ferguson's career, basically his career as Manchester United manager. He did miraculous stuff at Aberdeen. This probably still beats anything he ever achieved at Manchester United, consider the size of Manchester United compared to Aberdeen. But it's, I've even started the pod yet. It's an hour in, and we are playing at 8 o'clock tonight. I really had better get my ass through this. I'm suffering. I am suffering. I'm going to kind of stick up for Russell Martin. I still have this. I have this feeling that he might actually go on and do it. I am experiencing darkness in this reign of Russell Martin. It's not that it doesn't matter to me. It's not that I'm not suffering the same as anybody else. And the place I suffer most readily is in our sacred European away record that it took so many years to build up, and I've enjoyed it so much. I said something a few pods back about how we didn't have anybody to go to anymore. I think there's a feeling just now that just get rid of Martin. It's no working. Let's go back to the safe option. What is that safe option? Walter Smith is no longer with us. Derek McInnes was always one that's held up as a kind of common sense, whatever that means. He's the guy, just get him in. We're not going to try anything too fancy. We're going to try something that's reliable to a certain extent. Well, Hearts have got him now and can probably pay him every bit as much money. And why wouldn't he want to win the league with Hearts? He's going so well there. Why would he come to us? Steven Gerrard, get him back. We doesn't work with Michael Beale, and he's failed at Aston Villa and he's failed in Saudi Arabia. So we don't want. He wanted the same hunger, the same passion. Steven Gerrard, that's not really an option. But I feel as if when it comes to Europe away from home, I would get Philip Clement back. I would take Clement back. I absolutely loved it. I loved it the last couple of seasons in Europe, and Clement became Barry. And last season in Europe away from home, we had 7 matches. We only lost 2 of them. One was to Manchester United at Old Trafford. Not a great Man United team, obviously, but they're on their way to a European final. Man United, and it was a last minute, it was an injury time winner. They scored against a Rangers team who was full of kids and crocs and players playing out of position. So many injuries going into the game, picking up other injuries during the game. The keeper chucking one in the back of the net, but we still kept going, and they only beat us. They only beat us in injury time. Manchester United at Old Trafford. Athletic Club of Bilbao, the game where we go out. it's a quarter-final European competition. Athletic Club, a La Liga giant. After Real and Barcelona, you've got Valencia, Atletico, and Athletic Club. Really, are your next the three great clubs. And Athletic, I think, had won the Copa del Rey more than the other two for decades. Decades. It took me a while to catch up with Athletic Club, an institution in Spain, Athletic Club, and we should have had a game-changing penalty and red card before Athletic Club opened the scoring in that game that night. That was only 2 games we lost on the road. We drew with Dynamo Kiev in Lublin in Poland in the first leg of our ill-fated Champions League playoff match, our third round qualifier, and we drew with Olympiacos, who were a European trophy holder at the time, in Piraeus. Always a nightmare going to Greece any time, but we drew over there with them and really should have won the game. Missed quite a few chances on the night. We lived with them and more. Our first actual group game in the Europa League, the new format, away from home. Malmo beat them 2-0 going on 10-0. We beat Nice 4-1 in the Côte d'Azur on their own pitch. We beat Fenerbahce 3-1 going on 5-6-1 in Kadikoy in Istanbul. On the Asian side of the Bosphorus, we went and we took it to Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce and absolutely pumped them away from home. Even the season before that, and that's Barry obviously as the manager for those last 2 games there, but very much Philippe Clement's team that he's got. The season before that, Philippe Clement, when he came in, his 3 games in charge, he got a brilliant 0-0 draw, like a stabilising draw away to Sparta Prague, and we've had bad times there before. The Letna in Prague, another Mittel European kind of a Mitropa Cup classic side, a Sparta Prague classic club. We go to Betis, we go to Seville, and we beat Real Betis, our first win against Spanish opposition on Spanish soil in European competition. A game for the ages. And we go to Benfica, who ultimately put us out in the last 16. But we draw. We just go toe-to-toe with them. They're actually kind of lucky and end up to get a draw with us in the Stadium of Light. A record in Europe has been phenomenal, and yet this season, away from home, and this season, Russell Martin, it's only just his beginning for him in terms of European competition, but his first European season, it's been slowly degenerating across our 3 away performances. We drew a fantastic result on the night against Panathinaikos in the Olympic Stadium in Athens. An amazing thing to see Rangers playing in that stadium. But we got played off the park, and they've signed Cyril Dessers because they can't score goals, have Panathinaikos since then. But the chances we offered up to them. But we drew on the night, can't you argue with that? But then the next game against Pilsen, we're away from home, Victoria Pilsen. They beat us 2-1, but my God, they created the number of chances. I mean, Panathinaikos and Pilsen created the number of chances that meant they should have did what Club Brugge then did to us. Did to us. And their most recent away game in European competition, where they beat us 6-0, going on 10-0, and it's an absolute disaster. So going to Graz tonight, the Graz has always been on the other side. I don't know. It's not a winnable group. We can't say that anymore in this new format. No such thing as a winnable group for Rangers, really, but it's eminently doable schedule. It was up until Genk. Genk beating us at home was horrible. It was absolutely disastrous. It was terrible. It's just not what we're used to, is what I'm saying, in the past few years in European competition. I've loved their record. I've loved their competence. I've loved our nous. The way we've played in Europe over the last few seasons, it's been an absolute joy to watch. But we've lost half of the winnable home ties. We've got Braga at home and Roma at home. Difficult home ties, but Genk, who were like heading for the bottom of the Belgian table, their manager was getting close to the sack. They're awful. And then we've got Ludogorets Razgrads, who are a very experienced European club over the last few years, but they're kind of doable. But yeah, to have thrown away the 3 points, never mind the 1 point they get, the red card does have a lot to do with it, but not as much as the manager was making out. And I was just appalled last Thursday night, has to be said. And now the first of 3 very winnable away games, but it would only been winnable to last season's Rangers, Rangers that would were so bad we sacked the manager and just threw in a caretaker who'd no chance of keeping the job. So you have to hope that Russell Martin is just stripping it all down before he builds it back up. We have got Brann of Bergen, Norway, in our next away game, and then Ferencvaros and Robbie Keane's Ferencvaros, who are destroyed by Karabag, although Karabag have continued to do well in the Champions League. So we don't know what's happened there. I don't know how they got in this week. They beat somebody 2-0 at home, didn't they? Beat somebody at home. Copenhagen, I think they beat 2 or 3-0 at home after having beat Benfica and got Jose's job there. Just an amazing situation there. Gets sacked by Fenerbahce and then ends up going to, because Benfica beat Fenerbahce. But I think it's a doable game against Ferencvaros in Budapest. Austria-Hungary, doing the whole Middle European thing this season. And I think it's a very winnable game against Brann, and it would normally be a very winnable game tonight. It would be over the last few seasons, but it's just, we're so bad just now. I can't see it happening, but I would love it. We need to get this campaign started. We need to compensate for beating Genk by getting an away win, not even a draw tonight. We need to be winning if we're going to convince anybody, if Russell Martin's going to convince anybody. I see the goal against Galatasaray getting retweeted. It's the goal we scored when we beat Galatasaray in the, I think it's a playoff round for the 2020-2021 Europa League, and it's COVID. There's nobody in the stadium, just a one-off tie that was played at Ibrox. And the goal where Rangers had retweeted it officially back in the day about the perfect way to build out from the back, it was called. And somebody who hates Russell Martin, a Rangers fan who hates Russell Martin, was retweeting this and just saying, I wish we could have these days back. This is how the game was played, and this is just like the opposite of what Russell Martin is capable of. He was basically telling us. And you saw that goal, the way we did build it out from the back. And it was like a training exercise. It was like tactics board football. It was what the manager had been, Steven Gerrard and Michael Beale had been telling the players for the past 2 seasons, was finally really kicking in to the point where it was automatisms, as Philip Clement would call it. And the way they moved it, and it's like, I'm going to overlap you now because I'm the winger and I've got the ball, says Ryan Kent. And I'll give it to Borna Barisic, who's the left back, but left wing back, and he's overlapping me, and that allows us to kind of allows us to get more numbers. That allows us to get an overload. And on the other side, our right wing back, James Tavernier, he has overlapped and gone into the box. I'm actually going to cross it to him. He's headed it into the goal. It's a goal that was so good, it's almost boring. It's almost like a video game, the way we've played this ball about the park. It's like ABC, this is how you should do it. It's like a kind of AI-generated example of how you want the players roughly to play. This is what you should be doing. He should be overlapping. You should be staying in. You should be moving. The goalkeeper should be passing the ball out from the back. We should move it up the wing, cut it inside, and blah, blah, blah. That's what Russell Martin is clearly trying to do just now. We're at the stage, though, where the players can't do it. The players are getting caught out by the real football that's going on in between times, but they're trying to override that. They need to get more robotic almost. We can't be having last-minute winners and things like that and everybody going nuts. We need to get to a certain stage where it's kind of almost a didactic-looking kind of football. I was walking through Wynford, walking with my feet 10 feet in the air because I'm getting my head kicked out. I'm walking through Wynford, beautiful area, Mary Hill. I'll come back for Arnold Clark's the other day without my car. And it's the first I've been there since they knocked down the 3 of the 4 high flats, and the 4th one I've watched, they blew them up. Wynford, just between kind of Mary Hill and here, and I sometimes walk through there to go to. I used to go through them. I don't live as close to it as I used to. I used to just walk through Wynford to go to Tesco, Mary Hill for a wee bit of shopping or whatever. Don't do it so often now, a bit further away, but I'll go to Morrison's and Arnie's Land. But walking back through Wynford on the way back to Arnold Clark, and I'm like, it's devastating. It's reminding you a bit of the photographs you've seen of Gaza. It's nothing like that whatsoever. They're just flattened buildings these days, flattened tower blocks. But because I hadn't been there on the ground for a while, I didn't realise what it would look like. Because obviously they blew up the demolition. It was a Sunday, and I saw there were so many folk leaving this area to go along and taking the kids like it was a fireworks night or something. It's total poverty porn. Let's go and look at people's homes being exploded. That'll be great fun. There was cars everybody couldn't park in here so they could walk all the way along there to Mary Hill and see these tower blocks getting blown up. I think they feature in, is it Peter Mullen's Neds? They've got the tower blocks at Wynford, and they were a real, a real kind of God, a landmark when about here. You could see them from everywhere, and I walk along my street and you go around a kind of bend, and you'll see there's one block that they kept up because there's too many houses round about it for them to have blown it up. They're taking it down floor by floor, and I'm watching it losing a floor every time. I know I can't see it anymore because it's gone below the houses that are immediately in front of me. Yeah, that's been something, a kind of remarkable thing to watch as you get your daily, or in my case, weekly walks. This is people's lives. People, grew up in Wynford and died in Wynford and had the greatest family moments there and that kind of stuff. And I'm walking through there, and I didn't realise that they're still clearing it out because the pile of rubble that is created by 3 tower blocks getting blown up means that they're having to still rubbleise the rubble. They're having to make the rubble smaller, and the buildings are. It's just they haven't even cleared the building to cleared away the building materials. They haven't got rid of the foundations yet. It's such a massive. When you walk past it and you can see through the wee. There's wee holes in the kind of fencing and that, and you can see what's going on. It's incredible amount of work, and they're still taking down. There's still about 3 or 4 floors to take down that last tower block, and and you think, yeah, that's it. That is it. Why aren't we winning more trophies? Why aren't we top of the league? Why aren't we? Because there's so much work to be done. The foundations have got to be rebuilt. The foundations have got to be cleared away first. We've got to get rid of stuff, and this is what's happening just now. I think with Kevin Thelwell appointing his son as our new head of recruitment. I said before, we had plenty of problems in the past when Rangers weren't taking on board what was happening under our noses. We weren't signing Lawrence Shankland. Why is Gio not going to the Dutch market? Because he is Dutch. He's trying to show that he knows our market as well. It's nepotism-tastic. Colour me. Oh, God, no, that looks absolutely terrible. If I hear the word optics one more time, I'm going to kill myself. But I think Kevin Thelwell did say in his recent video where he was sticking up for Russell Martin and just basically apologising without apologising for the start to the season, he was trying to explain how he signed particularly Chermiti from Everton, where he was involved in signing Chermiti, and he's bought this guy for like 8 million, a guy who hasn't scored a goal. That does look ropey. It does look dodgy. I can't argue with that. As dodgy as taking on his son. But he was talking there about how he knows the English market. It's expedience, and I think that's what's happening just now. It's expedient that he gets in players from a market that he knows. I think the new management, the new owners, the restructuring of the club is the priority. And it's almost like the personnel who are taking up those positions in the new restructuring are secondary. The standard of the personnel they're getting in, or the identity of the personnel that they're getting in, is almost secondary. And that goes, a lot of us will agree, a lot of you guys will agree, that goes down to Russell Martin as well. Why would you pick him as head coach? It was just, we need a head coach as opposed to a manager who wants to play an expansive type of football. That'll do. Get all the basics and make sure that he just knows what the role is, and somebody who understands the role. And if they're crap at it, well, we'll get somebody else in after that. But it's been established that that's what the role is. We'll get them replaced. I think you're like, oh my God, that beam's cracked, your roof's going to fall down, or that lintel's gone. Oh, well, my brother's, he's working a job just along the road. His company have just taken out some. They've got the metal beams that go in there to replace that hold your house up. We'll just get him in a phone with you. We just get him in. I think they've come in, and Russell Martin hints at this all the time, or says it outright. There's lots of changes needing to be made, and that's why he was sticking up, I think, for Kevin Thelwell appointing his son, his 26-year-old son, Robbie, as our new head of recruitment. I think that's why he was doing it in the press conference last night in Graz. We need so much change behind the club. This time last year, we had Philippe Clement get an extension to his contract last summer, because he was being asked to do so much more than his role as manager. He was chief executive. He was involved in the scouting and the recruitment with Niels Koppen, who also, he seemed to be doing anything else at the club. The two of them were covering absolutely everything. Our chairman, we had to get John Gilligan in as a temporary chairman, so he could appoint a chief executive that they could then find a full-time chairman who would then get replaced by the new owners anyway. The transition going on at this club just now isn't. We're down to the rubble. We're just knocking down the old block of flats. And that takes ages to get the ground cleared, to get the foundations dug out, so we can start putting the new stuff in. and we can start building it up. It's a miracle that we're actually as high up as 8th in the SPFL Premiership when you think about it like that. I don't know all the details. I just know that Peter Mandelson's been involved in this. He's not involved in this backroom shuffle we've got going on just now. We've got, what was it, Nathan Fisher. He's the new head scout, and he comes from Everton. So there's been a lot of, this is again this nepotism, jobs for the boys from Kevin Thelwell. He's signing players that he knows. He's getting in people that he's related to, that he has birthed, that he's conceived as human beings. He's getting his son Robbie, and he's only 26 years old, and is head of scouting, I think, at Norwich, and before that he was a scout at Wolves, where Kevin Thelwell was also a sporting director, and he was a scout at Aston Villa. He's only 26 years old, but apparently he is very good. Now, Norwich City, not in like the size of Rangers or whatever, but the Cafu of Norfolk himself, Russell Martin, has got contacts down there, and apparently they say this guy is really good at his job, and Russell Martin's sticking up for him and Kevin Thelwell yesterday. I get it. We'll get Jamie Ramsden, who's our new head of performance. I think was head of academy sports science. Is that what it was? David McGregor has become he's the men's head kit man or something. That's a promotion for him. We've also got a boy, was it James Monty or something like that? He's coming in later on in the month as our data insights lead. I thought a data insights lead was like a socket, it was a plug, an extension lead for your laptop. I have no idea in it, but it all sounds very modern. It all sounds very good. I think it's about getting the structure, and it's about getting just the club running in the proper shape everywhere. And then the actual people that are filling those little jobs, if they're no good enough or whatever, obviously they're doing their best to get the best possible people, but I think it's a case just now of, my boy will do it. Aye, that's fine, get him in. Let's get that structure going, because I think things are so bad behind the scenes at Rangers. We don't see the work that's required in the foundations. We don't see that all the rubble has got to be cleared before we can start building things back up. And I think Marat and Kavanagh, they know. I think they see a certain kind of perspicacity in Russell Martin and Kevin Thelwell, that they understand everything that's required of a modern, progressive, forward-thinking, expansive playing. They know that Rangers have got to be an expansive club. They've got to take advantage of the fact that they are going to have most possession of the football in most of the games they play domestically. So they're getting in a manager, a head coach that suits that. And Russell Martin understands it. They also understand everything else that needs to go on about the club. It looks bad, yes, the optics are bad, but I say last season, the stadium wasn't even ready last season. Our chairman was ill with everything that had to go on at the club, everything that was happening and wasn't happening. It's going to take a while for us to rectify all that. And I don't mean that as a criticism of anybody who was there at the club last season. They've just been keeping it going, which is a miracle. The stuff they've done, I don't think it'll be appreciated for years, and now we've got the guys who are having to rebuild it, and they are getting less than appreciation. They're getting abuse for doing it. And in his pre-match presser last night, he kind of continued the theme, Russell Martin, of Sunday's post-match in Livingston, where it was all about the team fighting together, and he was trying to crack the jokes as well. Again, I think he did it in Sunday's post-match presser at Livingston, but there was like a strange noise in the background. He's like, "God, that's what." You can see him thinking, trying to think of a joke, and then eventually coming out with, "That's how I felt when they equalised today." Don't know if it's time for jokes, Russ, but then I can't actually blame you for everything you're going through for trying to make jokes or just cracking generally. And then last night he made a wee joke, which I don't think was a joke, about looks like taking the players to Loch Lomond actually worked. I think it's because they've won a game, because he's telling us that the team are bonding better. I don't think there's much evidence of that yet, but hopefully that comes through. He knows it better than us just now, but I think it was actually a dig. But I think he's mentioned it a few times in that kind of flavour. He dismissed the problems with Sturm Graz's pitch, so hopefully he's not going to, after playing up the problems with Livingston's pitch last week. But mostly it was about how the players were all, his press conference last night was about how the players are all united and together and fighting for each other, and the staff and the directors, and Marath got a flight for Fortnite just to jump on the pylon in the dressing room so they could all celebrate that winner at Livingston. They were all right behind him and each other. Everybody, the players, the directors, they're all right behind Russell Martin and his staff, and his staff are behind the players. And that's fine. That's great. I get that. But he keeps talking about how it was a great performance, or it was a brilliant performance in Sunday, and it really wasn't, obviously. And then coming on top of the Hibs game, he's missing out the Graz game to make it look like a run of results. And as domestically, as a run of 2 wins, you can't argue with that. But it's very disingenuous to miss out what happened with the Graz game, which he dismisses in the back of the red card. But Graz were an awful team. Sorry, not Genk. 2 teams, 1 syllable, beginning with a G, in consecutive weeks in the same European competition is too much for my brain to cope with. But I think he's trying to create a kind of forward momentum and a positivity, and it's commendable. But it's worrying if he genuinely believes these are the kind of performances that we're aiming for, that Rangers are aiming for, the kind of performances we've had against Hibs and then Livingston. I maintain, or I hope, that his joy, the sense of genuine joy that's coming off him just now, comes from seeing his plan start to work. I find it difficult to believe that maybe Tav and Raskin, particularly James Tavernier, the stuff he's been through with Rangers, would buy into that level of joy for just winning in injury time at Livingston, and that being your first victory in 6 in the league. But their effort in that game on Sunday, Tav's absolutely everywhere, trying to score all sorts of goals and managing it, and then no managing it. And obviously Nico Raskin being everywhere as well, with the corners and winning the penalty. That indicated they're on board. They're definitely on board with the plan in Livingston, and maybe they can see now what the manager is trying to do. I think he was also talking about how he went down. He went down the tunnel right at the end. I think he's heard Emma Dodds saying after the game against Genk, he was out shaking hands with everybody after he beat Hibs, but he's going straight down the tunnel after that game tonight. That comes across as harsh, but also very observant. And Emma, as we know, is a blue nose, so she's going to look after us in terms of what she sees. Maybe he's heard that and he's very conscious of the fact he went straight down the tunnel, but he's talking too often, as far as I'm concerned, about how he went straight down the tunnel to let his players celebrate. But it's only too often, as far as I'm concerned, because I'm watching every press conference that Russell Martin does. He keeps getting asked the same questions. So he's saying the players need to be allowed to do a wee lap of honour, and if he's drawn the hatred of the crowd, if it's all on him, well, he's not going to join in that lap of honour. So it's a lap of thanks to the fans for coming. You always applaud your fans at the end of the game as a professional player these days. If he's going to get abuse, well, that's going to ruin it for the players. So he just gets straight down the tunnel, and that's very commendable. And I'm hoping he's just pointing it out because he wants us to know that he's not in the huff or anything like that. He's very keen to let us know that the abuse isn't kind of getting to him. He's just got to go on with it, and that everything he's achieved in his football life has been to prove people wrong. Nobody ever believes in him. And I find that both thrilling, and I believe it in him when I hear him saying stuff like that, and I want it for him. But I also find it worrying that he's got to that already. He's needing to mention that already. But maybe this is how this job's supposed to happen. If everything's getting stripped back, if it's going to be, there's going to be pain. This was always going to be. This is why he can take it. This is why he endures it. And of course, he pointed out that the only thing that gets to him is seeing young kids giving him the vickies and all that, and copying their fathers, and that's having a go at us as knuckle draggers. And there's a lot of this. That's just part and parcel of the game. We forgive ourselves very easily for that stuff. I don't like that. I think I've got to take responsibility. But what we're doing just now to Russell Martin is so dark. Him taking it is making it even darker. People just, if he would just go, if he would just leave, there'd be no need for all this abuse. There comes a point you've got to look at yourself. You've got to look at your own behaviour. You end up cheapening yourself by indulging in all this kind of stuff. So, Sturm Graz, they are second in the Austrian Bundesliga just now, 2 points off Rapid Vienna at the top, and they've played a game less, so they're in prime position to make this 3 in a row. They won the Bundesliga last season and the season before, so they're going for 3 in a row, and that's quite a thing when you consider RB Salzburg had won the 10 leagues before that. They've been champions 10 years in a row in Austria, something that never happened in Austria before, and it's like Bayern winning, 14 of the last, or 13 of the last 14 in Germany. The German Bundesliga was a team of such strong clubs that you would never have thought could be dominated that way. We had Juventus doing a kind of 9-10 in a row attempt. quite recently in Italy, Manchester City, first time anybody in England's won the English top flight 4 in a row. That's just a couple of years ago. This is a situation just now. That's another part of why it's difficult for us to topple Celtic. This isn't happening in a vacuum. It's not just us. It's because the Champions League money is distorting. It's creating a monopoly. The Champions League is a monopoly, as a cartel, which Rangers helped create. So we're not going to complain about it too much. But factually, this is why it's difficult. Once people are into the Champions League, they can compound their own dominance, and it drips down into their domestic dominance. So it's going to take us a while in that respect as well to topple Celtic. That's why Celtic are just fighting tooth and nail, as they have done over the years, to maintain their Champions League presence, to take a league title that the league campaign wasn't even complete. The club that championed, Peter Law, the very man that championed sporting integrity, zero integrity whatsoever. When likes of Juventus and Liverpool, who are winning their first title in 30 years, in 2019-20, we're saying, we'll not take this title. We won't. If the season gets called 8 games short, we can't accept this title, even though we were well ahead, dominating that league, and we've won it however many years previously. It just wouldn't be right when folk are dying, But then when it was all about, it was the lifeblood of the game to get the season moved the following. A couple of seasons later, when it was suiting Celtic, it's just stuff like this is what augments any team who's in a winning position, any club who's in a position winning their title in Europe just now. So you've got to bear that in mind, of what Rangers are actually trying to overturn, and how we have to just make ourselves so much stronger at every level. At this moment in time, there's a massive restructuring going on behind the scenes, and Russell Martin is the man taking the flak for the kind of customer-facing effects of that. But we have Sturm Graz, as I say, they're the second top, and they also won on Sunday with a 94th minute, I think it was a 95th minute own goal, beating the TSV Hartberg. You never heard of them? No, well, nobody in Austria has heard of Livingston, except Sturm Graz, who have played Livingston in Europe, and their next European game will be at Parkhead. So Sturm Graz have gone all domestic, and they've gone all very Rangers in more ways than just playing us of late. The Graz are AK. I saw them at Ibrox. We beat them 3-0 in the UEFA Cup, the old UEFA Cup group stages. That was under Le Guen, so that would be 2006, 2007. Basically, in 2000, the 2006 portion of that season, we qualified from that group with a game to spare. But part of that was beating Grazer AK, who I think have been actually renamed Grazer Liebherr at some point. They won the title once, Grazer AK, back in 2004. Sturm Graz won it 5 times altogether now, 98, 99, 2011, and then the last 2 seasons. So they're going for a 6th German title. They'll all be Bundesliga. Is the best, like the Bundesliga in Austria was at 74 or something like that. It started 73, same as like a decade after the Bundesliga in Germany. They had lots of champions before that, but it's kind of played in a regional basis. Graz is the 4th city of Austrian football. Like Vienna has won vastly more titles, even if you don't include Mödling, which is like including Greenock with Glasgow. It's a kind of strange thing. It's just about 15 kilometres from Vienna, Mödling, and they moved teams from Vienna to Mödling. But Vienna just dominates Austrian football the way Glasgow does. And then I would think you've got Innsbruck and obviously the one and only Salzburg, and then it's Graz in there with its collection of 6 titles total. It's a kind of Dundee, I think. If Innsbruck is, or Salzburg is like Edinburgh with like 8 titles, and Aberdeen, they've won the title 4 times, so they'd be next. That's probably Innsbruck, and Graz is probably Dundee, because Dundee and Dundee United have both won the title once each. Maybe that's Linz. That's Linz, perhaps. Okay, so it's far away from being the best, the most dominant city in Austrian football, but it's dominating it the past couple of seasons. They've done really well. And I think we've got to watch ourselves. In terms of European terms, it was the 70s before, even just at the start of the 70s, they qualified for the Fairs Cup, Sturm Graz. I think they've been on the go since about 1909, 1904, the first decade of the 20th century. So they're a good bit younger than us as a club, but they got to the quarterfinals of the Cup Winners' Cup, kind of mid-70s. They got to the quarterfinals of the UEFA Cup, losing to Nottingham Forest, Brian Clough, who went out after dodgy refereeing by Anderlecht in the semi-final in 84. It was the 83-84 UEFA Cup, which was eventually won by Tottenham, beating Anderlecht in the final in penalties. Graham Roberts scoring. 2001, they topped the group that we were in. they beat us 2-0, say, over in Graz, after us beating them 5-0 at Ibrox, and it was one of those campaigns, their second campaign in the Champions League under Dick Advocat, who'd been unlucky the previous season with that loss, despite everything, in Munich to Bayern in the last group game. With this one, it was Galatasaray. I remember we started off 5-0 win in our first group game against Sturm Graz, an exhibition night, and then what was the next one? We went over to Monaco, we won 1-0. Two-guy at sweeper and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst scoring from outside the box. The following game, I think we lost to Galatasaray in Istanbul, 3-2 in the end, but they were destroying us. We then drew 0-0 with Galatasaray at Ibrox, and so we're going to Graz. I think that was our second last game, was it? It was a penultimate game, and we thought, well, this is doable. We can definitely beat them. Graz beat us and finished top of the group, and we ended up. We finished. Did we finish bottom or third? I think we finished third, but out we went because we drew 2 each with Monaco, despite taking an early lead in our last game. Big Lorenzo having a bad night in that one. So they qualified. It was the second group stage in those days for the Champions League. So that was a feather in the cap of Sturm Graz. They've been Europa League group stage regulars in 2023, 2024. They did that thing that's no longer possible of playing in 3 competitions in one season. They get destroyed in aggregate by PSV Eindhoven. We know that feeling. In the playoff round of the Champions League, they finished third in the Europa League group, and then they won the kind of knockout round playoff against Slovenia, Slovan Bratislava, a proper old Mitropa Cup game that, and then they lost in the last 16 to Lille, and that was Lille who beat them last season, 3-2 in the Champions League group. They're in the Champions League group last season, but they ended up finishing 30th. They won only 2 games and they lost 6. Not a bad record considering their size and considering what we've experienced in the Champions League last time we were in the old group stages. But they beat RB Leipzig at home, and they beat Girona at home, and a certain Bojan Majovski played up front for 67 minutes for the visitors in that game. So I would like to say he's experienced playing against Sturm Graz, Majovski, but it was played at Klagenfurt because the Champions League wanted them to play at a bigger venue, not Ingolstadt or Inglewood. So they played a lot of teams twice in the last 2 or 3 years. They played, that's been playing Lille twice. I think they played Atalanta twice. They lost 5-0 in Bergamo last season in the Champions League group. They've played Sporting Club, the Portugal, a couple of times in the last couple of years, and also Midtjylland. I think they played them a few years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago, in their first game of this group stage. When we were getting beat off Genk, they were losing at Midtjylland of Denmark, a team that we've played ourselves quite recently under Stevie G, beat them quite easily. But they lost 2-0. The team that put out Hibs this season, Midtjylland, but they beat Sturm Graz 2-0 in match day 1 of this Europa League group stage. So for me, they're on course for 3 in a row in the Austrian League, and the coefficient always sees Scotland and Austria kind of floating about each other. I think Austria are ahead of us just now by 2 or 3 places in the league coefficient. And I know their managers been making a big deal about how much more money we have, but the stage of development we're at. They've played Champions League group stage last season, and not everybody destroyed them. They're competent, they're sharp. I would be confident of last season's Rangers not only drawing this game, but winning it. There's a lot to be asked of this Rangers team just now, how they're playing at this moment in time, and I really worry that we could be heading for a 5th straight defeat under Russell Martin in European competition, and that's where I start to check out. That's where I become the knee-jerk fan. That's where my whole kind of chat of, we need to stick with the plan, we need to just take this to like maybe December before. I can't handle it. I can't handle losing Europa League games. I love European football so much, and I love Rangers doing well in European football of late. I find it very difficult to go back to that kind of. I'm not going back to the Kunsel estate. I'm loving in Mogai. I'm not going back to the Kunsel estate. That's kind of what it's a Pilsen. I think it's like Victoria Pilsen away level kind of standard of game. It's the same part of the world. It's the same size and type of stadium. Same part of the world as far as we're concerned. Anyway, Mitropa football, Mitropa Cup football clubs. We should have been hammered that night. But I mean, I know Pilsen won in the goal back in the glorious Mitropa Cup days of the 20s and 30s. But you know what I'm saying. We should have been hammered that night in Pilsen. Lyle Cameron, who's back in the squad apparently, is back fit, training with the first team anyway, and is really good because he is a very good player. Lyle Cameron, his attitude's absolutely perfect. We were hammered in Bruges. Lyle Cameron stopping us from taking a hammer in that night. I think he killed Pilsen's momentum just as they were building it up, because they had a 3-0 first leg deficit to recover. I think when we go one each on the night, they're just like, all right, there's too much to do now. When he equalises on the hour with perfect timing. But we can see if we've gone more of the way to exercising the Bruges drama, the Bruges trauma. Russell Martin talking about this in his presser, saying that it affected the team so badly they're playing even worse than they should be domestically because of what happened in Bruges. It's basically what he was saying. I'm paraphrasing him there. But if we're properly starting to exercise that Bruges trauma, this would be very much the night to do it. We absolutely need to make up for the Genk result. We need to make up for that Genk result. And I want my away day light blues back. But far more importantly, it's about validating that sense of positivity that Martin's putting forward, about almost kind of backdating the payment of that, the earning of that level of gushing that he's doing just now. He seems to be far too positive about the team at this moment in time, saying that it was good that we won against Hibs, it was good that we won against Livingston. That's what we would expect. Good to get the result. There's a lot still to be done. A lot, but he's like, oh, it was fantastic. We're brilliant. We're great. It's the best we've performed. Saying it's the best we've performed all season isn't a compliment to this Rangers team right now. But the man is enduring something biblical. We think it's his fault, everything that's wrong with the club just now. It really isn't. It really isn't. But we've kind of gone through something ourselves that we never ever thought we would go through as a support with our club, with Rangers. Bankruptcy, lower league, playing in the bottom division in Scotland. Did we really think it was going to be a straight journey back to the world of winning league titles and retaining league titles? And if you did think that, what in the last 13 years has convinced you that it still should be that? Obviously, it's all going to be traumatic. There's going to be a one-off shock to our collective system as a club with what happened to us in 2012, and the way back from that is going to be tortuous. We need to get to a kind of stage where the OTT kind of disingenuous positivity and gushing of Russell Martin meets the inaccurately vicious hatred, and it is hatred coming from the Rangers support for Russell Martin. And these two things, they bang in against each other, and then they start diluting each other. And we start getting to a point where Russell Martin can just go, I'm glad we won the game, but there's a lot still to be done. And we're going, aye, right, okay, as long as he's acknowledged that, we'll support Rangers. We're not going to boo the guy and make banners with his face on it and start shouting personal stuff at him and getting more Waynes along and give him the Vickies and stuff like that. The two things need to start diluting each other, need to bang off each other, and I'm hoping what happened, that phenomenon, that mostly audible phenomenon after that winning goal at Livingston on Sunday was the start of that. We're fifth bottom of a domestic table of 12 teams right now. We're sixth bottom of a European table of 36 teams. There's the potential here for Rangers to finish lower than we've ever finished in any league table. Panathinaikos are top of the Europa League group table. There's only one game being played by everybody so far, but Panathinaikos are top of that. That's a kind of reversal of what happened last season when we get put out of the Champions League by Dinamo Kiev, and Dinamo Kiev ended up bottom for most of the group stage of the Europa League. They were bottom of that table because they dropped into the Europa League as well. But I think they finished third bottom eventually, and we're in the automatic qualifying positions. That's been reversed just now, that scenario, by Panathinaikos, who we put out of the Champions League. But it was our first SPFL Premiership win of the season, and now to get our first Europa League, UEFA Europa League win this season. That's two competitions that we know very well how to finish second in, but not second bottom. It's October, folks. Happy October. That's us done the hardest of the hard yards, Russell. Two straight wins would kind of ease the hurt and the pain. If we put together, you get your first top flight win, you've got your first back-to-back domestic wins, if you like, but Rangers actually winning two straight games. If you win tonight, it would stop the Storm. If you stop the Storm against Sturm, we'll stop the Sturm and Drang in the stands and try to keep Sturm. If you've managed to a 1 3/4 hour preview pod, which is going to get posted probably about maybe 4 or 5 hours at most before the game kicks off. If you've watched even a second of this, folks, thank you so much. I have had a bit of a wild week with various things. It's not just the carling for its MOT and all that. I will get back on track with these preview pods, getting them out at a time that will give you a chance to watch them. Also, thanks very much to everybody who's written in. I've had these various things I've had going on just now. I've not had a chance to get back to everybody. I like to try and reply to anybody who, unless they don't really need a reply to what they're saying when they get in touch under the comment section. But thanks so much to everybody. Apologies to anybody who I've not had a chance to get back to so far. But I will be back to you as soon as I possibly can after the game tonight, and hopefully we've got something a lot more clearly enjoyable than what happened at Livingston on Sunday to talk about after the game tonight. Enjoy the game, folks.